To Arthritis Broadcast Network's Facebook Live event and Twitter Live event here with Jennifer Wilson, the Executive Director of Cassie Friends. We're so excited to have you here, Cassie, in the broadcast booth, in the hot seat, to help us launch not only our own activities related to Juvenile Arthritis Awareness Month in Canada, but of course your own. We have enjoyed such a nice long-standing partnership with Cassie Friends, doing lots of really interesting things to try to advance not only the learning around childhood arthritis, but the things that we can do to make a difference in their lives, not just now when they're children, but as they grow and become adults. So we're super excited to have Jennifer with us. We hope you can stay the full half hour of our programming. If you have to run and get a cup of coffee or answer a phone call, come on back because we'll still be here likely. So welcome.
Thank you.
It's really nice to have you here. You know, we at Arthritis Consumer Experts for the last sort of 18 years have really focused on sort of the devil that we know best, which is adult arthritis. And we do provide some type of programming around juvenile arthritis, but we by no means are the group or the organization representing them. Cassie Friends is. And so we follow your lead so often in what you're doing. We thank you for your leadership. It's amazing what you do for children. I've been blessed to be a part of some of your programming, so welcome, and we look forward to sharing with the audience. Who Cassie Friends is a really good place to start.
Sure.
So go for it,
Well,
Jen.
thank you so much for having us here as well.
Yes.
You know, I'm really proud to represent Cassie Friends here today and to share more about who we are as an organization, what we do, and most importantly, really who we do it for, which is kids and families who are affected by juvenile arthritis as well as other pediatric rheumatic diseases.
Okay.
So
Which is a pretty broad spectrum, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, we have such a strong partnership with our center of care where we're based at BC Children's Hospital, and the pediatric rheumatology team, of course, cares for kids with juvenile arthritis, juvenile lupus, periodic fever syndromes, vasculitis, etc.
So similar to the adult world, where there's this huge spectrum of disease, you have that in children as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we, just wanted to make sure that, we were home for all those kids and families. They're all being treated and sitting next to each other in clinic, and so that's always been really important to us.
So what was the inspiration? Why did someone turn on the lights and say Cassie Friends is open for nonprofit business?
Yeah. So Cassie Friends was first founded by two parents. You'd probably not be surprised to know Cassie's parents.
Yes.
David Port and Debbie Seton. And they started Cassie Friends when they faced the unexpected, and that was the news that their 2-year-old daughter had incurable arthritis.
Wow.
And they were trying to figure out, not only what this meant for their child, but for their family and their lives moving forward. And they were really struggling. They were struggling to find the kind of support and resources and information and, most importantly, connection that they craved and felt that they needed to get through.
Because knowledge is power. Whether you're an adult living with it or a parent trying to parent a child, that knowledge gives you power and some level of comfort in terms of the journey you're going to face.
Absolutely.
So they just said, they looked around, didn't see anything existed, and said, we can make this change.
Yeah, and they knew, they were struggling, and they weren't quite sure how, but they knew they wanted to make a difference for kids.
Yeah.
And so one of our first activities was fundraising for the Ross Petty Arthritis Society Research Chair.
Right.
And through that process, this community formed, and it was David Port and Debbie Seton, their daughter Cassie, the other parents they were meeting through clinic, the pediatric rheumatologists at BC Children's Hospital, as well as the allied healthcare workers, who were all just really committed and passionate about the struggles that they were facing and what the answers were. Yeah. So, research is the one day for everybody, and it's so important. But Cassie Friends was also formed to start addressing the everyday. And so what do kids and parents need at the time of diagnosis, through that first challenging flare, when they go to school, when they go to high school, and every step of the way.
So then if I ask you the question, so what's the need for a kids with arthritis organization, obviously those would be some of the things.
Yeah.
I mean, you would say, well, where are the current gaps?
Yeah.
When we look across the horizon line of arthritis and you don't see something out there for children, you think, okay, there's an opportunity, also a challenge. I'm sure it wasn't easy for Deb and Dave to get Cassie and Friends off the ground. But so you focused on fundraising for research first, and it sounds like it was a bit, they told two friends, and then they told two friends, and chatted it up in clinic when they were waiting to see their pediatric rheumatologist. So it shows you that something as durable and as iconic as a kids' arthritis organization can form from just something seemingly small, but not. You know, something that grows organically, and that's not dissimilar from ACE. Yeah, actually. Exactly. So I think that's why we're kindred spirits organizationally.
And you know, in terms of the need for a kids' arthritis organization, like clearly, you know, we well, one of our core values is child-centered, and so for us as an organization, we bring that lens of child and family first to everything we do. Yeah. It's really important for, you know, some parents who get involved, and it was important for our founders and our board to know that all those resources were going 100% to the juvenile arthritis and pediatric rheumatic disease community. Right. And we also, you know, there's obviously there's other umbrella organizations, and we, you know, work collaboratively across the spectrum. Like
the Arthritis Society and others, and I know that across the country there are, like here in Vancouver, BC Children's Hospital, there's Toronto Sick Kids, there's the pediatric units in Montreal, and everywhere else in the country. So Cassie and Friends is now part of that network, obviously.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And then the other part of it, you know, as parents, we wanted to create this home for kids and families that is full of positivity, empowerment, encouragement, not only about the child's condition, but about these, you know, big, beautiful lives they're just embarking on. And so, you know, to have a place that kids can call home and where they can see themselves reflected.
Do you know, our audience, our Facebook audience, and Twitter followers, because our primary audience is adults living with some form of arthritis, it's sometimes, you know, not common knowledge, certainly to them, and certainly not the broad population, that this group of diseases strikes children as young as before 1 year of age, or 2 years, in the case of Cassie, 2 years of age. And, you know, if you think about how traumatic it is, I myself am living with rheumatoid arthritis. It's almost 30 years now, and I can't tell you that 1 year was any easier than the next, but you do learn from your community how to deal with the daily setbacks and the daily wins. And having met many of your parents and children in Cassie and Friends, I can tell you that, boy, have you hit it out of the park, because you just walk near you guys and you emanate this wonderful energy. And I think that's so important for the kids, because kids shouldn't be bothered with this stuff at this age, right? They should be just running around and pulling people's pigtails and, you know, doing fun things like that, having sleepovers, and all of that really is affected. So tell us, Jennifer, how is the disease itself? You and I are both health educators. We're not medical doctors, so I respect that. I'm not going to ask you, you know, what the cellular level things are doing.
Thank you.
But fundamentally, how does it differ? What's the difference between childhood arthritis and arthritis in adulthood?
Sure. So juvenile arthritis, which is like technically juvenile idiopathic arthritis, used to be referred to as juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And that was updated because, you know, researchers were learning that and wanted to differentiate and signify that this is in no way just like a child-sized version of adult rheumatoid arthritis. And of course, as we were discussing earlier, research keeps changing. And, you know, but apart from the medical and the scientific side, kids' arthritis is just like 100% different than adult arthritis in the way it presents and the challenges that come with it.
So tell us a common presentation. What parents who are out there watching, who aren't sure, but they've seen us around and they're tuning in because they're curious. What are some of the common signs and symptoms, Jennifer, that sometimes get written off to growing pains? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, I mean, in Cassie's case, of course, she was 2, and she went to bed an energetic, vibrant, healthy toddler, and woke up the next morning, took her out of her crib, and she couldn't walk. So that's, I mean, sudden onset, that tends to happen more common in younger children.
Okay.
But for instance, you know, some of the teens that are diagnosed with arthritis, they might, you know, have a certain swelling, like on the top of a foot, or a certain, you know, joint that is quite painful. As kids they're moving, they're in activities, and so a lot of time they can go through this cycle of, oh, it'll get better, you know, you probably sprained it, or they'll start going to a, you know, sports medicine, or physio treating a sport injury, and it's that persistence, it not going away. There can be inflammation, there can be swelling, sometimes all of that when the kid can't necessarily express the pain and
what's going on.
It can be, you know, I've even met one family where their daughter was being treated for depression and, like, you know, behavioral stuff and, you know, mental health for a year before they realized that the core cause of her symptoms
was juvenile arthritis. You know, some of that is similar to adult arthritis in the sense that we find all kinds of reasons to write off these nuisances that grow in our daily lives until you're to a point where, okay, I've got to go see my doctor. We know, without going into great detail, though, that there is a different disease process going on in children than in adults. Although how we react might be similar in childhood to adult, we know that there are different disease processes going on. Tell me about kids, the different challenges for them. You know, for me, it's like, how was I going to remain gainfully employed? How was I going to, you know, maintain my relationships with my friends and things like that? Tell us a little bit, Jennifer, about sort of their unique challenges, medically, at home, with their family, and also at school. You know, 2 years old, you're not even in school yet. So tell us a little bit about that. What's the journey? What does it look like? What are the challenges?
Well, one of the things in the pediatric rheumatic disease communities, there's 2 sets of challenges. There's the challenges the child face and the challenges the parents are going to face. So, you know, parents, of course, it's, you know, they're wanting to have a healthy and care the best they can for their child, making some really difficult decisions around medications and, you know, possible side effects and outcomes, feeling responsible. You mentioned work. There's missed work. I mean, a child with, you know, juvenile arthritis, it can be that one parent may not be able to continue to work, but there's also just, you know, the burden of care of countless appointments.
I think that's something that most don't understand. Is that as adults, we, you know, take ourselves, and yes, there's an impact at our work life, but for the child, it's missed school probably, a lot of it, and also the parent not able to work either. So it's almost like a double whammy.
There can be the missed work for the appointments and the clinic or the infusion every 6 weeks, and then the days the child's not feeling well at school, and that can really double up. But for, I mean, a lot of families, specifically, you know, one of the biggest challenges they face is pain, and, you know, high pain days, how to cope with them, the anticipation of a flare, like that can be almost as difficult as just waiting for it. But also the pain that's related not just to, you know, the joints and inflammation, but to the treatment. So the medications, the injections are very painful for many children. And that can, you know, result in a whole host of other concerns like anxiety, needle phobias, you know, other mental health challenges that kids face. And then kids, like their adult counterparts, but maybe to a larger extent, you know, they don't want to be different than their peers. They don't.
I would think it's greatly heightened in children. Right? It's where we start our early sort of days of scoping out our environment and wondering where our place in that environment is. And you know, a child, it shouldn't have to be compounded by the disease, right? But it is for sure.
One family we recently served through one of our programs. They were, you know, they did sort of an interview in a community paper, and you know, one of their challenges was that their 6-year-old sometimes needs to come to school in a stroller, when she's unable to walk, and that is, you know, they get the
Oh.
looks, the teachers will judge, the other parents will judge, but, you know, people just really can't know, and they really can't make assumptions.
Great practical advice for our audience. So
Yeah.
how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you have to go into the school.
Yeah.
There has to be interventions that are aimed at the people who are placing judgment on the child.
Absolutely.
And the parent, for that matter.
Absolutely.
So how do you do that? Does Cassie and Friends get involved at that level?
Yeah, so one of our programs is called Kids on the Block.
Okay.
And it's an educational puppet show that comes in and it gives parents and kids a really powerful voice to explain their condition to others.
Okay.
And the great thing-
Held in schools?
Held in schools.
Okay.
It's for elementary grades 1 through 4,
Okay.
around there. And one of the great things about it is the show is funny, it's vibrant, the puppets are life-size.
Do you get to do the puppets?
No. We
Okay.
have professional.
I'm
puppeteers.
signing up for puppet duty someday.
Actually, nobody knows this about Cassie Friends, but we're one of the largest employers of puppeteers in the Lower Mainland.
Are you kidding?
I think so.
Oh, that's
actually.
fantastic.
We have quite an amazing troupe of these talented actors who bring the kids' story to life, and the show is geared at kids,
Yeah.
age 1 to 4.
Yeah.
But
But the adults are
half
probably
the
learning
time,
a lot
the
too.
teachers will, afterwards say, "Oh, I finally understand, what Susie's going through."
What a great knowledge translation sort of vehicle
Yeah.
to
yeah,
take,
yeah.
basically the evidence base around social science, psychosocial science, and get it to the people who really need to use it.
Absolutely.
So you do this on a regular basis? Do you have a schedule?
Yep, we book all through the school season.
Yeah, okay.
We do about 30 to 40 shows per year.
Wow.
And once or twice a year, we do some extra fundraising to try and get outside of our home base,
Yeah.
Vancouver, Fraser Valley. So we recently just came back from a 9-school tour of Kamloops and Kelowna, where resources are even less,
Yeah.
and the awareness can be less, and
Yeah.
they can't rush for these
Just
resources.
access to rheumatology is
Exactly.
less, right? So that's like the tip of the iceberg. And the access to things that are beyond that we don't even see,
Yeah,
right? They're just
exactly.
below the level of the water. So congratulations,
Thanks,
that's
yeah,
amazing. So
it's awesome.
is it by request?
Well,
How does that work? Because I'm sure there are going to be schools who are going to be ringing you, saying, or emailing you. So how do they go about arranging for this?
yeah, so we kind of booked 2 ways. Well,
Yeah.
originally it was parents requesting us to come into their school.
Yeah.
But as more schools have seen it, the overall message of the show is inclusion, friendship, ability over disability, how to talk about any kind of difference. So we've actually been getting lots of schools calling to say, "Can you come?" And
Fantastic.
I'll give a little acknowledgement to
Plug
our
right there.
sponsors.
Plug right there.
But Martin Insurance and Gore Mutual Insurance Foundation are 2 of our long-term partners.
Fantastic.
And they support the program annually and allow us to reach as many kids and educators as we do. And we're working really hard to expand and bring it over to Victoria. We've been to Prince George, Penticton.
So corporate Canada, if you want to
Yeah.
do something really smart
It's true.
and invest in our future with children with arthritis, this is an opportunity just waiting to skyrocket, I think.
Absolutely.
I love that program. I'm cheating and knew a little bit about it. Glad that you shared it with us. So apart from those, sort of that type of, I would call stigma
Yeah.
for children in school,
For sure.
what are some of the other things? I mean, obviously dosing of medications when you're in class. How do you advise parents? How do you advise teachers? How do you advise the child? How does that work, Jennifer?
So what we try and do is, we really try and provide information and resources through
Yeah.
Kids on the Block, through our annual Family Day conference that
Yeah.
give parents and the children the tools they need to keep a really open dialogue with their educators, and not just their educators, but their coaches, their dance teachers, etc.
Anyone that's in their life, any one of those are sort of like little planets that revolve around them.
Yeah, kids are involved in a lot, and they spend a lot of time with adults who aren't their primary caregivers, as in school. And so it's just really important about, giving the baseline information about, here's the challenges they might have. Like, a kid may not be able to sit for 8 hours in their classroom. They might need to get up and do some extra, movement or walking to keep
their body may
to keep
need
their
recess
joints.
before recess is called,
Yeah.
in other words.
Yeah. I know some parents have talked about, creating, adaptation sort of conversations, whether they're using iPads or technology.
Yeah.
As opposed to, if they're having a lot of hard time writing in pencil.
Yeah.
It's also about, helping the kids navigate their own friendships. Like, this one young gentleman, he was just like any other kid, as they all are, but had, extra challenges when he went to middle school, manipulating his locker. Because that's just something that was tricky for his family.
Yeah.
So it's really about, having faith in your relationships and in knowing how to talk about it.
Yeah. It sounds to me, and I think this is a really important distinction, kids they're our most vulnerable population in our overarching arthritis community.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do more and better for them. I am always of the belief. And I think what Cassie and Friends, what I think about your organization is you do these little custom fit solutions for every child. And it's really time consuming. I can only imagine the creativity. And the solution is only as good as it's going to work first and foremost for the child, for the parents, for the physicians, like for everybody that orbits around the child. So kudos to you for coming up with these individual inventions.
Yeah.
I think for every little kid. Talking about one big invention, another thing like Kids on the Block that I think has been pioneering is Family Day.
Mm-hmm.
So can you share with our audiences, tell us about Family Day?
Yeah, so
I've been there, folks, and it's one of the best things I do in the year.
So I guess going back 10 years ago,
Yeah.
to when Cassie's parents were, first diagnosed as a family, they went down to the States to the Arthritis Foundation conference, where there's thousands of people, and got just a lot of great resources. I think they always say they, had a great cry, but also just, they saw the power of community.
Yeah.
And that's what our Family Day is about.
Yeah.
So we've been doing Family Days, will be our 9th year. Family Day is going to be on Saturday, September 16th, if anyone's watching and in town. And Family Day is probably the ultimate expression of what Cassie and Friends is. And
so describe it to people watching and listening, and who will go and visit your website. Give them a sneak peek about what the day is and how it's run.
Sure. So Family Day is a free event, first and foremost, so that anyone who wants to come can come. And it's a day that really mixes education with that opportunity to connect. And the kids are treated to this incredible, adventure-filled day of really just being a kid.
So the parents and kids are separated.
So the parents are, everyone's together, sort of.
Not separated, you know what I mean.
Yeah. And then the parents are given the opportunity to kind of go on an educational track through different sessions. So they might be learning about school issues, medications, advocacy.
And can they choose those? Is it sort of like a little
choice of
three? Okay,
exactly.
Okay.
And so they go into their different sessions. This year, for the first time, we had a special auto-inflammatory group, which was excellent and spearheaded by a parent in our community. And then we also have, for the first time this year, a parent roundtable lunch. And that was excellent because that really sort of demonstrates the power of our relationship with the pediatric rheumatology team at BC Children's Hospital. Because they took, so much time, and they put a ton of effort into our Family Day as speakers and facilitators.
They're unbelievable, actually. They run around like kids themselves at that event. I love it.
This particular
someone's on the board?
Dr.
Lori Tucker. Hi, Dr.
Tucker. Dr. Tucker is on our board, and every single member of the team is really, really committed to seeing Cassie and Friends succeed, and we couldn't do what we do without them. But they put together at our Family Day this parent roundtable lunch where every family that was there was like strategically seated at this roundtable, either with a child with a similar diagnosis or a similar age challenge, so a teens table.
So then it was the kids organized that way, or the kids and parents organized that way?
Just the parents. parents.
Just the parents, okay.
And the kids were off, so the kids get separated.
Oh, I see. So a parent that had sat next to a parent with a child in a similar circumstance,
Exactly.
age, gender, whatever.
Yeah, and just
Very
that
cool.
opportunity, you know, in a sea of, we had 350 people there, to connect one-on-one with someone who's really going to get you and get your challenges and maybe share, you know, medication issues or, you know.
I think that's such an important part of Family Day.
Yeah.
And it's because, you know, this childhood arthritis thing doesn't grow on trees.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the rarest of rare diseases, but one could consider it a group of rare diseases because it's not just one type of childhood arthritis.
Exactly.
It's a multitude of types of arthritis. And so this venue that you've created at Cassie and Friends, this conversational table, you know, where people sit down and break bread together, it's where you don't feel alone in your journey with your child. And tell me some of the things that you heard. If you're a fly on the wall and you're listening in on some of those conversations, what for you, Jennifer, as a person who is the steward, you know, the pilot of the ship, what for you some of the pearls that come out of that round table?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I think you said it, is that, wow, I don't feel alone. Like, wow, you have never met anyone else who understands or, you know, who doesn't either question the kind of medications that my children are on, or who, you know, doesn't understand why maybe we're not, you know, as social as we used to be. We're able to keep commitments like we used to do. You know, parents are just so eager to talk and
so
share
they're open.
stories.
You really find them to be quite open there.
You know, some sit back. There's definitely some are, you know, listeners for a good portion of the day, but the day's also really raw and emotional for some. You know, we have some people who've attended for 9 years, and we had a huge number of newly diagnosed families attend this year. So that like interplay between the more experienced parents and the new parents is also so important.
You touched on something just then, and I was remiss in not asking it earlier in our conversation. What's the prevalence? Like, how many kids get it? Is it, I mean, obviously enough to make Cassie and Friends a thriving and growing organization, sadly. We'd like to put you out of science, we'd like to all be out of business, thank you very much, researchers. But so how many kids get it? How many have it? How many get it?
Sure, so the number is 3 in 1,000. We're estimated at 24,000 kids in Canada. And to kind of put that 3 into 1,000 perspective is that, you know, your sort of larger size school, anywhere between, you know, 2 to 3 kids would have juvenile arthritis.
Yeah, so thus the school programs,
Exactly.
obviously. You need to sensitize the community to these things do happen, unfortunately, to children in their school age years.
Exactly.
I actually, you know, we had heard 1 to 3, and so now I know there are other types of disease that have come up that are now included in that sort of catchment of juvenile or childhood arthritis.
Exactly. I think juvenile idiopathic arthritis
is the largest of it?
Is the largest, but that subsection, JIA, is more like 1 in 1,000. But when you look at all the subtypes and everything, then it goes up anywhere, you know, 3 in 1,000.
So not dissimilar from autoimmune arthritis in adulthood, where RA is sort of the big daddy. Or mommy, if you will, and then the other autoimmune diseases, ankylosing spondylitis, psoriatic arthritis, and others, and on and on.
I was going to say one more thing about our Family Day. What we overhear. One of the best things I've ever overheard at Family Day was actually a second-hand story of a young boy coming up to his mom and, you know, dad and his brother's there, and he turns to his brother and he says, "You are so lucky you have arthritis. This is all for you." And, you know, that's the way we want kids to feel at Family Day. Yeah,
I hear here. I have to say I was really privileged to have been invited last year. And I'm not kidding when I say it's just my favorite thing to do in the year, because I get to go be a kid again. I get to and I'm surrounded actually by adults who are parents of children with arthritis who actually get me. So, you know, the challenges of getting the people in your environment to understand what it is you go through are, I think, universal. they're just different in that it's an adult context versus a childhood context. But I just love that day.
Yeah.
So I hope you'll invite me back. I'm just going to break in.
It's such an early way too for kids to start building their own community that they're going to need when they're young adults and adults.
Transitioning.
Exactly.
Yeah. So kids, it brings up a good point. I think talk a little bit about that period in their lives. That transitioning period I've heard is sometimes difficult.
Yeah.
Because if you've been diagnosed, such as Cassie was diagnosed at the age of 2, and many other children are diagnosed at a very young age, and they're with someone, they're with a community for all of that time. Talk about how they transition.
Sure. So BC Children's Division of Pediatric Rheumatology actually has one of the leading, it's called a yard
clinic.
And so that is a transitionary program for kids when they start about 13 years old. To
young adults with rheumatic disease?
That's right,
okay.
So to help them when they're, anywhere from around 13 years old, to start gaining confidence in having those one-on-one conversations with doctors.
Okay.
So the parents might be asked to leave the room at first for a portion of the appointment. They may come on their own. There may be other young adults or teenagers in the session. Yeah. And, this is really, really groundbreaking. It's model setting. But even with that, there still is this cliff effect kind of feeling.
Yeah, kind of like I can never go back there.
Exactly. Well, and this care team that may have surrounded you for all your life, or if you were diagnosed later as a teen, you might still really be coming to terms of what everything means for you.
So you've got your hormones raging and your whole world medically is starting to change.
Yeah, and then you're into the adult world, and so there's the change of care provider. Yeah. And then there's also, most young adults will start looking at school. Some may go away for university. If they're going away internationally, they have to think about the kind of medications they're bringing, the availability.
Their insurance coverage.
Yeah. I know we've heard a couple stories about, a teen or a young adult will go into their first adult rheumatology appointment and they'll ask them, well, what medications are you on? And, everyone has a different ability to answer that. Sometimes they're like, well, my mom knows. She's in the waiting room.
I still say that. What are you talking about? Yeah, it's the medications sort of aspect of living with arthritis, whether it's juvenile or adult, is really difficult, and I'm sure this resonates with a lot of our viewers. I can only imagine how much more complicated it is in childhood arthritis when it's not just me as an adult making a decision with my rheumatologist about a medication regime, adding, changing, but you have a child who obviously, because of their age, doesn't have a full grasp of the kinds of reasoning that they might need to make or understandings they might need to have. So then you interject the parent, and so the parent has their own set of beliefs as well as their belief in their care of their child. So I can only imagine when they hear, your child probably should be on methotrexate, for example. And the first thing they do is run to the internet and see that it's used in cancer, but it's used in a tiny, tiny amount. And it's very, very effective. I have many friends who I've helped to mentor during their childhood, pre-Cassie and Friends days. They're now at university and still surviving on methotrexate. It's a very, very good drug and can be used for a very long time. Absolutely. But they talk about biologics, and there are kids who need those kinds of therapies. They're expensive, they're not tested in children, and they're not covered as a result. How do you deal with that? Jennifer, how do you deal with a parent who really needs that for their child and can't get it?
Yeah, so, as you know, because we just partnered.
This was a total setup, this question.
So, we as an organization that's been really entrepreneurial, and you said just like plugging the gap and being quite tailored to the needs of kids and families. Advocacy is one area that we're really trying to develop and leveraging on your expertise. Luckily, we're neighbors in Vancouver. But, that's going to be a really important part of Cassie and Friends going because as we're, more and more being recognized as the voice for kids and families, we want to make sure that is a big, loud, powerful voice, and advocacy is the way
and in a responsible way. I mean, there's evidence there that suggests that there's certain types of medications that are expensive, that are being paid for in adults and not for children. So fundamentally, we know that's not right,
Yeah.
if in fact we do believe they are our most vulnerable population.
Yeah.
So we couldn't be happier to be embarking on this journey together to learn better and do better in terms of advocacy. Not that anyone's been doing a poor job, but we know that it has to be not just strategic, but sustained.
Yeah.
And I think our long history of working with government is that they rely on us to bring their voice, our population's voice, to them, to let them know what their specific needs are. And that's certainly going to be true for Cassie and Friends, and already has been true for Cassie and Friends moving forward. You know, I want to kind of round out our discussion by having you share with us some of your new research partnerships.
Sure, yeah.
They're so exciting. And as you said at the start, Jennifer, they are the future, but the future happens now.
Yeah.
And so I was so excited to hear when we spoke to prepare for this interview about these new research partnerships and projects, and I wonder if you wouldn't share that with our viewership today.
Yeah, so I mentioned that we got our start. We contributed $400,000 to help establish the Ross Petty Research Share.
That's a lot of lemonades to be sold on the street corner.
That's a lot of running. We do an annual run event every year, so that was really where we got started. And through the Ross Petty Research Share, which is currently held by the head of the Division of Pediatric Rheumatology, Dr. David Corral, they were able to really establish one of the first pediatric rheumatology wet labs in Western Canada. And amp up their whole, research program.
Yeah.
So in support of that, there is a researcher at BC Children's. Her name is Dr. Kelly Brown.
Yay! I met Kelly. She's amazing. Yeah.
And she's been really involved with Cassie Friends, but through the Michael Smith Foundation for Health Research.
Yes.
We are a powerful organization. We're quite a gritty organization. We'll get stuff done, but we are, still small and we're growing. So we were able to leverage their Scholar Award program, which offers co-funding. And we were able to announce a 5-year, $450,000 partnership, a Scholar Award for Dr. Kelly Brown and the work that she's doing. And what she's looking at is we're really interested about the information or the kind of research that's going to personalize care and really get kids into remission as quickly as possible and just get them back to being kids.
Yeah.
So she's looking at identifying lower levels of inflammation that will inform when to start, stop, taper, and withdrawal medications.
Right.
Which
I would imagine parents are really eager to have answers in that regard.
Yeah. Right now the statistic is about, I think 60% of kids will flare within 1 year of removing their medications.
Really?
So that is a lot of guesswork of when to pull back, when to increase the meds.
So Dr. Brown is looking at certain things in the inflammation levels that will help guide that.
Yeah.
So we're not just doing it kind of by gut feel, which is really how we do it today, in adults as well as in children.
Absolutely.
Oh,
so
that's super exciting.
Other biological samples, not just the clinical presentations, but is there something in your blood? Is there a marker that then you can, the ideal picture is you go into your clinic visit and you provide some sort of bit or sample, and they say, okay, here's exactly where your inflammation level is, here's the medication that you need there. And that's what,
I think a lot of researchers too really think we might crack the code in kids first, because it is a smaller population, and so they may learn more things in a smaller population versus a larger population where scientifically there may be sort of quote unquote more noise.
For sure.
Yeah, really exciting. What other kinds of partnerships? I know you're doing something with Sick Kids in Toronto.
So through our family day, actually, we had a Dr. Jennifer Stinson, who is with Sick Kids in the University of Toronto, and she's quite accomplished in her work around pain management apps and technologies. So she had a really successful launch of an app within the pediatric cancer population, and she's adapted that for juvenile arthritis.
What's the name of the app?
It's called I Can Cope with Pain app, and it's for teens with juvenile arthritis. And so this was an initiative that she had funding for, and where we came in was the app allows teens to track, not only their pain and their joints, but their fatigue, their activity level, Eventually it will track their medication compliance, which is a big thing.
Yeah.
But there wasn't necessarily that opportunity to provide feedback. So, the teen saying, I'm really not feeling great, I'm in pain, and I haven't been very active, or, I'm feeling down. We helped create some videos, mindfulness videos, that are the first of its kind, I believe, in the world, that feedback on that app. So you'll get an email or a notification to
So it's sort of closing the loop.
yeah, so here's something you can try. Here's an adapted breathing, or a yoga pose, or it's something that you can try right now.
Yeah.
Don't wait till your clinic visit. That you can address, and self-management, as you know, is a huge part of any chronic disease.
Yeah. When I was first diagnosed, I remembered there was a long wait to get in for physiotherapy, and I was diagnosed and had a horrible onset. And in the first 6 months, I pretty much figured out a lot of things kind of on my own, but it would have been really nice had I been able to have a video that said, well, Cheryl, try this. When you think about overall the things that you're doing with research, I think we all, in our jobs, in our volunteer work, we say, we want a cure. But the word cure means so many different things, and I think a lot of the public doesn't understand that actually using your medications, practicing good self-care habits, those also are curative. Absolutely. Because they keep the disease at what they call low disease activity, or possibly even in remission. And I think that's an important piece of the cure pathway that we don't take full advantage of. And in the adult world, patients don't necessarily understand that. Obviously many do, but there are patients who struggle, and I'm sure there are parents and kids who struggle with that as well. It's that durability that you're looking for while the research is out there busy figuring out a way to shut the whole darn thing down.
Exactly.
Right? Put it out of business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if this, right now, juvenile arthritis is a lifelong disease, chronic. So, just making the most of every day. And a young adult that came to our advocacy session, she just shared this amazing piece that she wrote for her class at SFU, and she talked about being thankful for her medications. She talked about every day that she lives symptom-free with her disease is a win, and is life for her. That is the best life. And so it is possible, and can kind of just working towards that, and then providing kids and families the tools to get there as well.
I think, when I first got the disease, I was never a big fan of the word hope, but I have to tell you, it's kind of a neat word. And it encompasses, I think, so much of what is positive and sort of forward-looking for people who are either, whether they're children or adults, or parents, that you gain hope when you're a part of community, you gain hope when you see science advance, and you hope that things get better, but you do it in real time, while you're living with the disease, and it's not always easy, and to know that Cassie and Friends is out there for children and their parents is incredible. I know that we've had our comment box open as we've been broadcasting, so I'm going to ask to our programmer, Fearless Anita, who's behind the scenes, whether we've had any questions come in.
So there are two questions. The first one is, what can kids and their families do to improve communications and advocate for change to healthcare professionals as well as policymakers?
You start and I might chime in.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think for, like we did in the advocacy session, it's getting really clear on what your specific challenges are. And I think that being really, brave for one, and open about really sharing those challenges, and being clear about, here are the things that, whether it's this month or this year, if you're a family in Prince George and you traveled 10 plus times down to BC Children's Hospital, it's working within a group like Cassie and Friends. Hopefully they'll find a home there to help really clarify their issues, and then and speak together And I think speaking together is a really big.
It is really important, and I would add to that, that's really a great summary. And some of the pearls that were in that summary were really be clear on the issue. Understand really well whether it's your issue or a community-wide issue. If it's your issue, it's generally a community-wide issue. It's just no one's had the bravery, really, to stand up and speak it out loud. So that speaking it out loud is a very important first step. Understanding what causes the issue is really important. So it's sort of, I always view it as product knowledge. Be really smart about what it is that's causing the issue. And the most important thing really about advocacy at the end of the day is, what am I going to ask for to change or address the issue? Right? What you have to be really clear. If it's government, almost in the first 5 minutes of meeting with government, they say, what do you want? And if you're not able to articulate what you want, it's sort of like they glaze over, game over. They know you are their expert. So knowing the issue, understanding what causes it, knowing that there are things in place already in the system that they can use to get you your solution is a really, really good environment. And I think we're there. We know crystal clear, I think, some of the big issues in childhood arthritis that face both the children, their parents, and the community at large. So hopefully that will help address that question. Go to Cassie and Friends and learn more.
I think parents can also, unfortunately, juvenile arthritis is, I think, one of, if not the most common cause of chronic disability in kids in Canada. But awareness is very low in the general population. And so parents, one thing that everybody can do is just take on a role of educator. And educate, that's what we try and do wherever we go, is just educate people that juvenile arthritis affects 3 in 1,000 kids in Canada.
It's the elevator pitch, right?
It's, that's the same number, generally speaking, as children affected by juvenile diabetes. But if you look at the amount of public and private research funding, resources, and then just awareness,
way lower.
It's low. So, just every parent, and even teaching your kids. I know there's one parent in our community whose child is this amazing educator, but I think that if we all just, know our facts and really make a point to speak about juvenile arthritis, if we can get that base level recognition up, that will go a long way in those, healthcare professional relationships and policy as well.
And our other question, Anita?
One last one. What can teachers do to make the school environment more inclusive for kids living with juvenile arthritis?
Great question.
Sure. So first thing I can do is bring our kids on the block program to their school. It's really, there's no other way in 45 minutes to get the whole school community engaged around that issue and to learn, about juvenile arthritis. But I've heard some other really interesting sort of tips, and juvenile arthritis can also sort of have a secondary disease associated with called uveitis. So some children may have sight impairment due to their juvenile arthritis. And so one school I heard about, you know what beanies are? They wear those little vests. So as opposed to, them playing tag or a sport game and trying to figure out, her having trouble identifying who's on the team, they made it just sort of a blanket policy that everyone was going to wear beanies for every sport in any time. So really I think there's always that difference between adaptations for a specific child. So, some kids with juvenile arthritis can't sit crisscross applesauce, and that's an issue. So they end up sitting next to the teacher in a chair at the assembly. So that's adaptation, but what's inclusiveness like? Is it having all the children sit on chairs, or is there a way to not make them stand out, but to take care of the certain challenges they might have at school?
Listen, we have taken up so much of your time. I know this half hour has just flown by, but let me just say a huge thanks to Jennifer, to Cassie and Friends, to all the parents and children who were involved with Cassie and Friends. And if you're watching and you're not, we hope this has shown you what a welcoming place this is to go to be part of a community we really look forward to working with you on advocacy and many other things related to childhood arthritis. We're there to support you in the ways that we can, and we know we can count on the same from you. A reminder that March 1 is the beginning of Juvenile Arthritis Awareness Month in Canada. Your website is?
CassieFriends.ca, and I have to make a plug for our
Go! This is it.
March for us, Juvenile Arthritis Awareness Month, is also when we launch our annual run team. Every year, this is our 10th year participating in the Scotiabank Charity Challenge. There's a 5K and a half marathon portion. Last year we had over 100 runners. We raised $120,000.
Wow.
All of that goes to support the programs and research we talked about today. Our goal this year for our 10th year is to have 100 kids running, and all of that support and friendship around them.
It's like an education event
Yeah.
and a community event in and of itself.
So you can go to CassieFriends.ca and learn the information about registration. I hope you'll join our team. I hope you'll support Cassie and Friends. If you're a parent of a child with juvenile arthritis or another rheumatic diseases, please get in touch. We would love to hear from you.
And before you sign off, we have a special guest now coming into the studio. Molly, come here. Oh, hi. Say hi. This is Molly, the ACE mascot. She's been waiting patiently to come and say hi to everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.
Please continue with your comments, and we'll answer them as we get them. Thanks for joining.